So you've just started playing Starfield and now you're wondering what you need to do to make those cool ships you've been seeing flying around or that your friends are posting bragging about. Well, fear not, my fellow space traveler, because you have come to the right place. In this guide, I'm going to take you through one of the coolest systems in the game, teaching you how to build and customize your first ship. By the end, you should be well on your way to becoming a master shipwright. I'm going to take you through what you need to do before you get started building, the best ways of getting started, then I'll take you through all of the manufacturer's styles and what they look like both inside and out and where you can find them. After all, your ship needs to look cool as much as function. Then I'll take you through the ship's components and how to balance them. And then finally, I'm going to guide you through some useful tips and tricks to get your design going so that you can build faster and less painfully, as well as help you troubleshoot issues and tell you how you can decorate your interiors. And if by the end you think I've lived up to my end of the bargain and think I deserve it, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button so that you can get some more Starfield content in the future. This video, by the way, has been sponsored by Bethesda themselves, but don't tell them that. I probably would have made this video anyway. Starfield releases for PC and Xbox on September 6th and starts early access for pre-ordered customers on September 1st. Well, let's get back to shipbuilding, because there's a lot to cover. Alright, I know you guys are ready to go and you want to start building your ship, but there are some things you're going to have to do first before you can get started. The very first thing is that you have to make sure you've got enough money. Bethesda designed ship construction and upgrading to be something that you do towards the mid to late game. So if you want to do this, you're going to have to first make sure you have enough money. I'd recommend around 100k credits on hand before you start building your ship, or maybe 200k if you really want to be comfortable. You're also going to want to put some skill points into the tech tree for your character. You'll need this to unlock the better components that you'll find around Starfield so that you can get the better aesthetic pieces and make the ship just how you want it to look. But you can still do quite a lot with the base level skills, but you're going to at least need to put one skill point into this tree for ship certification. I'd also recommend a skill point or two in the social tree for selling things so that you can get some extra money before you start building your ship. Once you've got your skills and finances ready to go and together, you can choose one of these 3 recommended ways of starting your ship. The first is to basically cannibalize the frontier that you get from the very first mission. If you're a fan of Nova Galactic style though, this might be totally fine. However, if you want to do something in another style, I don't recommend tearing this ship apart because it has a unique module inside called the Frontier Hab, though if that's not important to you, then don't worry about it. The next option is to just buy a ship, but that can be really expensive, and if it's not in the style that you want to start with, then that's a good chunk of money that you just threw away. This can be a way of getting a hold of some really nice parts though, so this can be an option if you really like a lot of the parts on the ship that you're buying. The third and final option is my personal preference and my personal recommendation. It's probably also the most fun way of doing it. Let's call this option the borrowing option. This one can be done legally or illegally depending on your playstyle, but if you're planning on doing it legally, don't skip this part of the video or you might ruin your playthrough. For the legal way, the best way I've found is to take a pirate kill mission from the mission terminals and leave the ship that you want to commandeer for last. But I wouldn't recommend choosing a big one because the resale isn't going to be high enough for what you need. This method will also require that you have the targeting control systems perk under the tech tree, enabling you to more accurately disable the engine so that you can board. Afterward, you'll have to do what we'll say is fire the crew and then take control of the helm. But before you leave, there's something that you're going to need to do. If you want to stay playing the legal playthrough, you need to search the ship top to bottom for 1 to 2 pieces of contraband which will be on board. They can be physically anywhere on the ship, and they're demarked by a yellow icon next to the name of the item. They're usually mech parts or organs or stuff from the Varun. It can be a lot of different stuff. This is also another good reason to choose a small ship. It just makes it easier to find. After that, you need to go back to your ship, put it into your cargo, and then jettison it, because neither your ship nor the pirate ship will have shielded cargo, which is kind of weird, I know, but if you don't do this, you're going to get a crime stat and go to prison the moment you go to any space controlled by the UC or by the Freestar Collective. After that, you just fly to a new system, which will basically make it your home ship, and then land to register it at a major landing zone for around 10 to 50k credits, depending on the size of the ship. But regardless of your chosen method of starting, the next step is going to be choosing which manufacturer's style you like. Luckily, Starfield has an absolutely huge selection of pieces to choose from when you want to make your ship your own. But the primary look of your ship is going to fall under 5 manufacturers in the game, and some of these manufacturers also have their own sub-styles to choose from. The Stroud-Eklund brand features sleek, swept-back exterior panels which add a futuristic feel to the ship's design. They also have 2 styles of cockpit, a large version that goes on the top of your ship and a forward-facing bridge, which is also pretty big on the interior. The interior design follows the exterior's lead by having smooth, angular, pristine bulkheads, light floors, gray walls, and dark ceilings which vertically compress the space. It also features highlights of orange on openings and structure which add a nice little subtle touch. I feel it's a good choice for futuristic builds or certain other kinds of builds like this one. This is also probably my favorite style for making very big ships. Hope Tech is a more bare bones and industrial style with few aesthetic choices to choose from and functional pieces to add onto your ship. I recommend mixing this style with other ships to get the best result. They have a single cockpit design which pairs well with a unique set of fuselage corridors that you can add onto the design. The interiors feature rounded, ribbed bulkheads, somewhat similar to Taio's interiors, which I'll show you in a bit, but with a much darker color palette that makes it feel more like a submarine. Nova Galactic is the aged hero ship style that you'll have starting off in the game, and it has the most clearly NASA punk style of design, and it's for a reason. This is actually the oldest brand inside Starfield lore, and as such it has actually gone out of business. The star yards for this ship manufacturer are just in ruins. The design inspires a kind of hopeful feeling of NASA's yesteryear, which is why I'm personally partial to it. The manufacturer also has 3 types of cockpit, a small, a medium, and a large. The large is at a unique location I'll discuss with you later. And moving on to the interiors, they share the same kind of design aesthetic with a lot of light colored, worn, padded, and ribbed walls, adorned with a variety of really cool readouts. It really feels like it could have been on the ISS or on an old space shuttle. I really like this design. Then you've got Deimos, and this is best described as angular and aggressive, and actually it's for a reason, because in the Starfield universe, this is the chosen manufacturer for making UC battleships. So they're mostly a government contractor which does sell to civilians. The manufacturer also has 2 types of bridge, a small version and a lot of variants, and then the DS-30, a massive bridge for a big battleship. The interiors then follow this design style with angular bulkheads and a dark monochrome color palette featuring dark floors and accents of orange in subtle areas. The interiors here feel definitely reminiscent of battleships, and for good reason. And then the last brand is Taio, a Japanese heritage brand featuring smooth, rounded exterior designs reminiscent of hopeful NASA designs. However, as far as I've been able to tell, there's only a single bridge style for this manufacturer, and it's a small version. The interiors then feature half-round ribbed bulkheads in a light monochrome color style. The interior also shares a kind of aircraft-like feel that's reminiscent of some NASA designs, but more in a pristine condition as compared to the Nova Galactic style. This design also has a lot of unique exterior fuselage designs, which can make for a very rounded-looking design depending on what you want to do. So now that you've got a good idea of what the design styles are, it's time to choose a location to go so you can start building your ship. If you want to mix and match though, there are locations that carry multiple manufacturer styles so you can bash them together at will. Since there are a lot of locations that sell parts, I'm going to go through this part fairly quickly, so feel free to pause and go back where you need. Also keep in mind that if you're looking to build a very large ship, that the large ship modules are only mostly available at a manufacturer's shipyards with the exception of Nova Galactic. So I'm going to start with the major ship manufacturer yards. First is Stroud-Eklund. In the same order, they're located in the Narian system. They feature all Stroud-Eklund parts, including very large ones for building large ship and the Kon-Tiki large bridge. They also have turrets here. Now, since Nova Galactic is defunct, if you want to pick up the large modules, you'll have to go to New Homestead in Sol on Saturn's moon Titan. Here you'll find those extra large modules in addition to the extra large Cabot C3 bridge, which looks amazing, and some ballistic turrets. Next, for Hope Tech, you gotta go to Hopetown in Valo on Polvo. They have the large HABs. Then you've got Taio, which is a bit of a strange one. To get to their showroom, you have to go to Neon in the Voli system and go to Voli Alpha. That's where you're gonna find the Neon landing zone. While you're in there, it's going to be at the end of the walkway up the elevator in the Ryujin building. Here you'll find all the big pieces for Taiyo ships. Then you've got Deimos Star Yards, which is also located in Seoul in the orbit of Mars. This is where you're going to find the large Deimos ships for sale, including the large HABs and a bunch of really cool modules, as well as the crazy cool DS-30 Ares bridge. Now moving on to the standard landing zones. Sidonia in the Sol system on Mars features Deimos and Nova Galactic, as well as a bunch of ship turrets. New Atlantis in the Alpha Centauri system on Jemison features Nova and Deimos. Gagarin City in the Alpha Centauri system on Gagarin features Nova Galactic and Deimos. The Crimson Fleet base located in Crix at the Key features Shield and Cargo for smuggling, but don't go here unless you're on good terms with the Crimson Fleet or they will kill you. The Red Mile in the Parima system on Parima 3, they have Hopetech, Stroud, and Taiyo, as well as Carvel, Shielded Cargo, and Scanner Jammers for smugglers and pirates. Elio's Retreat in the Ixal system on Ixal 2, they feature Hopetech, Nova Galactic, and Stroud. Paradiso in the Parima system on Parima 2 has Stroud, Nova Galactic, and Hopetech. Then you've got Neon in the Voli system on Voli Alpha. They feature Stroud and Taiyo, and also Stroud and Taiyo showrooms on the main strip. Then finally, you've got Aquila City in the Cheyenne system on the planet of Aquila. They feature Hopetech, Stroud, and Taiyo. And that completes my list, but if I've missed one, Starfield's a big game. You should let me know down below so other people know my mistake. So now at this point, I'm assuming that you've got your money together, your certifications, the ship that you'll start with, a style that you like, and that you've arrived at the location where you want to start building. Now it's time to talk about the actual business of building your ship. So the first step is to find the local ship services tech, usually located nearby the landing pad or in a building just next to the landing pad, and speak to him choosing, "I'd like to view and modify my ship." Next, you'll select Ship Builder. But if it's still not letting you edit your ship, it's probably because you've not registered it yet, so make sure you do that first. Let's start with naming. Before or after you finish building or modifying, you're probably going to want to change the name of the ship to what you want. For Xbox, you'll hit the menu button, and for PC, you're going to hit the C button. Afterward, you'll enter the ship building menu. There, you'll see an option to rename your ship. On PC, you'll hit G to open the renaming option, or in the case of Xbox, you're going to hit X. Now, before you start actually designing the look of your ship, it's good to first lay out the components that you're going to need to build it. Each ship requires a reactor, a gravity drive, at least one fuel tank, but you can add more, a shield, at least one engine thruster, a minimum of 3 landing gear, a landing bay, a cockpit, a docking ring, and a HAB module that connects everything together internally. You'll also want a set of weapons, as at the very least, even if you're playing passive, you're going to need to defend yourself at some point. I'll go over the weapon types though in a bit. As far as choosing the right components though, that's an enormous task, and this is going to be something that's a bit out of the scope of this video, but I will provide you with some basic level information so you can make the best choice for you. Components have 3 classes, A, B, and C. A is beginner level and C is the highest rank. Unlocking this through the skill tree will give you access to these. Any ship that has above A grade parts will need an at least matching grade of reactor and gravity drive. So if you want to have C grade thrusters, you need a C grade reactor and gravity drive. However, A-class ships will always be valuable through your playthrough, as C tends to be larger and heavier, which brings me to balancing the ship. Ship balancing is where you're probably going to spend a lot of your time during this process, as it's going to be unique to each build. So before you start, it's useful to first ask yourself what kind of ship you're going for: a fighter, a hauler, a shipboarder, or an exploration ship, or so on, or a mix of each. Then you should consider the following. The single most important factor you should consider is the mass of your ship. Each time you add a component to your ship, it adds to mass, which will affect its maneuverability, its jump range, and its top speed. Pay attention to this bottom bar here and how it changes when I change components. You want to pay attention to this and balance things for how you want your ship to perform. Mass can be countered with large thrusters, but it's limited by your reactor output and the mass of the components required to run the bigger engines. So while large thrusters can counter a lot of mass, it's not going to improve your top speed. So think on this before adding a lot of heavy components. If you want a good fighter, then you want to keep your mass low. Next is jump range. If you want to have a lot of range between stars, then you're going to need a larger jump drive and fuel tank. But there's a trade-off. If you want a ship that can jump huge ranges, then you're going to have to sacrifice on maneuverability and your sublight speed. Exploration and hauler ships then don't need to worry about this, so this might be a better build for them. Then there's cargo. No matter what you're flying, you're going to need at least a little bit of cargo space, between 500 to 1,000. I found a pretty good number. But you might want to keep that number lower if you're looking for speed. Exploration and haulers, on the other hand, can go a bit nuts, but remember that mass affects jump range as well, so you'll also need to balance that. You can also find shielded cargo components at the Red Mile and Crimson Fleet's headquarters, just as a reminder. Protection is also important. Get your mind out of the gutter, by the way. Shield modules don't add much mass, but the thing you want to pay attention to is the recharge rate. If you're going for a fighter, you want one with a high recharge rate, like around 10%. But if you're going for something like a hauler or exploration ship where you're just going to be running from fights, then maybe you want to go with a lower recharge rate with a higher amount of health. Then there's weapons, which have 4 basic types: missiles, energy, ballistic, and electromagnetic. Missiles deliver really high power damage to shields and hull over great distances and do a lot of splash damage to components, so if you're looking to disable a ship, this might not be a great option. Energy weapons, on the other hand, can be either dual damage to either shields and hull, or just shields by themselves, and have a variety of long to close range options. Then you have ballistics, which are generally bad at penetrating shields but do devastating damage to hulls and components while delivering pinpoint accuracy. And then finally EM weapons, which are mostly non-lethal but do damage, so you have to be careful with these. These are great for disabling ships if you're going for that ship boarding build. And finally, the last important bit I want to talk to you guys about are the HAB and bridge modules. These can do a lot more than just add visual aesthetic to your ship's interior and exterior, they also add utility. You can choose to go with a larger bridge to get more crew, but it has more mass, or go with a smaller bridge with fewer crew positions that can be mitigated by adding a HAB that has extra crew. HAB modules can also have passenger room for transport missions. Every manufacturer also has 2x1 HABs, which will each add a different level of utility. Workshops, for example, add spacesuit, weapon, and component workbenches, whereas science labs and infirmaries both add pharmaceutical and research stations. Armories add an independent place to store your weapons and suits, which doesn't count as part of your cargo capacity. You also have engineering bays, which just add more crew positions, and then you have the actual habitation HABs, which are the all-in-ones, crew quarters, and the personal captain's quarters. These will give you areas to store extra stuff, but also areas to place and display things. It's also good to use these for smaller ships that want to be lighter. And then you've got the 2x3 and 3x3 extra large HABs. These don't unfortunately add too much utility, aside from extra crew positions and more transport capacity. Now it's time to get to the most fun bit, the part where you add greebles and aesthetic pieces to define the look of your ship. So you're probably going to spend a lot of time here, and to save you some of that time, there are some useful hotkeys and tips you're going to want to know. The best first tip I can give you is the duplication key. While mousing over a component that you've just placed, press Ctrl G on your keyboard and then hit Z to flip it and place it where you want. For Xbox, you just hit Y and then Y again to flip. You also can swap component variants by hitting spacebar after selecting a component and using the arrow keys or the D-pad to go between the different options for free. For coloring on PC, you select an object and press J to color it, and then select a color for each part, pressing Enter to finalize. But on Xbox is a bit more simple, you just hover over and press the left stick. Now, there's a bit of a thing here where the colors don't match very well because of the underlying color of the component, so you may need to match the colors by eye across the ship to get the correct tonality. Next are the HABs. Now I'm sure you're wondering how you get the interior to look how you want. Unfortunately, there's no way to preview it here in the build screen and no way to make connections between HABs intentional. It's sort of automatic and something you just have to trial and error until you get it to how you want. Finally, at the end, if you run into a red exclamation on the bottom of the screen, it means that you've got an issue with your ship. To figure out what it is, hit C on PC or the menu button on the Xbox to see what the flight check says that you're missing or where the issue is. However, you might find that it might look right, but you're still getting an error, and this is usually fixed by taking the components apart and putting them back together again one by one, which can be a lot faster than it sounds. If you're still having an issue though, make sure you're also checking your docking collars, don't have any components sticking too far out, and that your landing bay has the correct type of entrance. Some are side entrance, some are top entrance. So if it's like a side entrance connecting to something that doesn't have anything to go into, then it's not going to work. After that, you're going to need to do your weapon assignments. On PC, you click on C and go to the weapons tab and then assign the weapons to what group you want. And then on Xbox, you just go to the menu button and click the bumpers to go to the weapon assignments. And as promised, somebody told me that there is in fact a way to place things with some intention on the interiors of ships. All you need to do is go inside your ship, outside of the shipbuilder, place an item on the ground, and then look at it holding it, not clicking it, so that you can pick it up and move it about, using the right and left click on your mouse to rotate it. The same thing can be done with an Xbox remote by holding A and using the trigger buttons to rotate it. And that's it. Well done, you've finished your first ship. But this isn't actually the end, as you'll soon find that you want to tweak and upgrade as you go along, and you might even find more designs that you like that you want to add onto your ship. Also remember that you can build multiple ships, so you can just toss the one you built aside and build a new one. But I've been Morphologist, and if this guide has helped you in any way, please let me know down below. Also let me know if you have any questions, problems, or tips you'd like me to add so that other players know how to do stuff. Also, if you're looking for a more complete overview of the game, be sure to check out my review posted about a week ago on Starfield as a whole. See you guys in the Starfield. That's an actual thing. A Starfield is an actual thing.